My name's Nate, and this is Heavy Pedal Garage. Today, we're going to work on getting the cool parts for this car painted and clear coated so that we can get them back on here. I'm going to be using the sparkling Merlot Pearl, which is the same color as the car, and that's a UreChem product, and of course we're going to use the same Glamour clear. So the parts I'm talking about is the lower valence, goes underneath that front nose. We've got the mirrors that need to be done, and also the rear spoiler, which you could have ordered that on a Formula or Trans Am. And another cool Trans Am feature that's going back on this car is the air extractors. So you can see here they're already done, but what I ended up doing was sanding everything down like I did the rest of the car, 400 and then 600 grit wet. And one of the air extractors, I had a little bit of problems with just some factory kind of defects. It wasn't quite as smooth as I would have liked, so I ended up putting some glazed body filler on there to correct some of those imperfections. And of course I ran out of my PPG epoxy sealer, so what I ended up experimenting with was a VHT spray can product. It's an epoxy paint, so I sprayed that on there, got it to cure, sprayed on really nice, wet sanded down really well, and I wanted to see how that would work as sort of a sealer. So the other thing that I'm kind of experimenting with here is the fact that the conditions in my garage when I painted the car is going to be different than the conditions of when I painted these parts. You know, maybe there's going to be a difference in how the pearls lay down, so you might be able to see some of that, and also, you know, that may cause some kind of shading variations between the parts. So we're gonna play around with that and see if there really is a difference, because I've been super paranoid about that. So next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and get these wiped down, and we'll get the paint mixed up and see where this goes. Okay, I got those all wiped down, and I will tell you, do not use the VHT epoxy paint. I put a little test amount of mineral spirits on there, or I should say wax and grease remover, and it started to come off. And then I used the reducer and checked it, and it was really starting to come off. So I went ahead and just wiped it all down and took all that stuff off and re-wet sanded. But the thing is, now we're going to see how well the UreChem acts as a sealer and covers up the spots, because I had to sand it all through and it's white underneath. So we'll see how it is. Okay, the old familiar scene here, my little paint mix area. We're gonna mix this up. It's 2 to 1. You can see here what I have left of this gallon. This, unless I'm forgetting something, should be the last bit of color that I spray. So 1 gallon was plenty to do the jams and the whole car and all the bits and pieces. So I'm just gonna get this mixed up, 2 to 1. 2 parts base to 1 part reducer, get my Spectrum cup loaded up, and then we'll get to shooting some paint. Okay, don't forget the tack rag and blow it off real good. Make sure you get all that dust off of there. Okay, this is going to be the first coat of the UreChem Sparkling Merlot. But one of the things I like about this PPS system is that it's got that cup in there, and you can actually bleed the air out. Okay, see how it's sucking the cup up? So what that does is gets that air pocket out, so you're dealing with nothing but paint going through your gun. And where this is really handy is when you need to turn your gun sideways or upside down to get up under those jams or those wheel wells. So just a little tip there to keep you from gurgling air while you're trying to shoot those low spots. But shouldn't be a problem on this, so first coat, here we go.
Okay, that's 4 coats. Now what I'm going to do here is a drop coat. I'm just going to hold my gun out away from the panel a little bit more than I usually would, and I'm just going to kind of do crisscross diagonals, rain those pearls down on top of there, and try to get a nice even pattern so that it's not all mottled. Let's do it.
Next day, here we are. I think everything looks pretty good. Minimal trash. Seems like the bugs and trash comes out when you spray the clear coat, but it's all looking pretty sweet. Even this piece here that I was having problems with, I had some blemishes. There you go, you can kind of see that. It's from that epoxy paint, and then this is just kind of the haze from some body filler. You know, hasty. I figured I'd go ahead and shoot it and see if that'll cover. And I think we'll be able to bury that in clear, both of those blemishes. There is a little bit of mapping right here. You can barely see that in the camera, but I think all that'll get covered up with clear coat. And you know, there may be some modeling or something that you see, is my guess. So we'll see how it turns out. I think it might be all right, but if not, we'll just sand and reshoot that one later. But as far as coverage goes, guys, this UreChem, I mean, this thing has sanded through to white and all over. There was, you know, white coming through, and you know, by coat number 2, all of that stuff was covered up. So 3 coats to be safe, but 2 coats would have been just fine. And I went ahead, I've got plenty of paint, and I put 4 coats on all of this just to make sure we got it. I'm pretty sure I learned some lessons from spraying the base and the clear on the car, and the base went fine, just like this, flawless, not a problem. But when I went to spray the clear, of course it was late, I was tired, worn out. I hate spraying that way, but I had no choice because of that 24-hour window. I wasn't thinking right. In the first coat, I know better, I laid it on a little thicker than I would have liked. So lesson learned. What I'm going to do here is start with just a light tack coat of the clear coat, and then we'll progressively build towards that final coat of being a wet look. You know, I got some runs and stuff in the car, and some sags, I should say, mostly sags, not runs. But as far as the texture, it laid down super nice. Like the orange peel is minimal. So I'll just have to address those sags. But we're gonna try a little bit different on here, the way you're supposed to. Start out light, you know, progressively build towards a heavier coat. Probably shooting for 4 coats on this as well. So I'm gonna get my gun cleaned up, get my clear coat mixed, and then we'll start making these things shiny. Look at this stuff. Ooh, it's like candy. I love it. So I wiped down the panels with wax and grease remover, and then tack rag, blew them off a little bit. I'll give them a little spritz of air before I shoot. So this will be the first coat. Gonna keep it light, get a little tack coat on there. Let's go.
Okay, we're about 7 minutes after completing the first coat. It's looking pretty good. Again, not a whole lot of trash. The coverage is good, but it's not great, which is fine because it's just a tack coat. You can see I got kind of a sandy, dry surface. But I'm trying to do what Brian on Paint Society says. I'm not going to try to hammer it on. So I'm going to keep the gun moving progressively with each coat, getting a little bit thicker. So we'll see how this works out. If it does, Brian from Paint Society, thank you so much, man. He's got a lot of great techniques. You guys need to check him out. Remember, don't overthink it. It's just paint.
Okay, as you can see there, again, this color to me is amazing. It's got so many different variations depending on the angle and the light. Today the sun is kind of going in and out. It's kind of a cloudy day, so I got the door open here, but you can see this turned out pretty good. Really, I'm pretty happy with it. I got a few little things that, you know, I didn't see in the primer, so I'm almost wondering, you know, if there's some anomalies in the clear coat that'll sand out. But only time will tell. So if I can get it to focus here, a little bit of trash here and there. But again, look at that reflection, like the orange peel, pretty minimal. So this ought to be pretty easy to cut and buff. A little bit of trash coming on around. You know, that's pretty trippy actually, the way the garage door reflects in there. But when you get up close, you know, you can really get in there and see some of the pearls, and it looks great. So, other than a little bit of dust and kind of some weird little anomalies that I think are clear coat, you know, everything kind of turned out pretty good. Again, nothing that I can't cut and buff out. Here's the trouble extractor, and you know, the clear coat really buried some of those issues that showed up after just the paint. Like this here is just ever so slight. This side here, I mean, you can kind of see just a little bit of an anomaly in sort of the pearls right in here where that filler was. And again, here's that mapping that we could see in the color. You got to cover your body filler with sealer. You know, I'm a novice, guys. I'm just kind of experimenting here, learning the to-dos and not to-dos as we go. And I thought I'd experiment on this little piece because it'll be real easy to sand that out. But I'm gonna sand and buff it first and see if, you know, I really have a problem with that. And I'm super excited to get this stuff out in the light and get it up against the car to see what kind of color variation we may have. Well, there we go. So the way this color flops and everything, it's not going to be any noticeable difference for sure. I don't think there's any difference at all. Now we'll really know when I get the pieces on the car, but I want to cut and buff before I get this stuff on. But even out here in the daylight, you know, it's like that mapping is kind of there, but you know, will your eye catch that? I don't know. I'll probably just put it on the car and down the road, if it's really bugging me, take care of it then. So I didn't really talk about these much, but these are the covers for the side marker lights, front and rear. But I just went ahead and took one off so we could look at this, and everything is matching up just fine. And like I said, with all the different angles and hues that this color puts off, I really don't think there's going to be any issue with spraying in different conditions, humidity and temperature wise. Again, this It's kind of a cloudy day, and I love the hue of this Merlot Pearl in these kind of light conditions. It's just got that almost dark cherry, plum, and at times when you look at it, it's like black, like a mirror with no color at all. So still really happy with the color choice. All right, so what's next? Well, I don't know. I got conflicting opinions in my mind. On one hand, I want to start doing paint correction on the car and these pieces, do the sanding, the buffing, and all that good stuff, and get the car back together. I've got parts that I need, just about everything, to start working on the interior, the glass, and all that. But the conflict that I have is, do we work on that? Or I got this 89 Blazer here that is my baby. I love this thing. It's rough and tough, but last Thanksgiving, almost a year ago, the transmission went out on it, and I don't know if it's maybe the torque converter or the 700 R4 pump. It doesn't have the correct adapter on the Edelbrock carburetor for the TV cable linkage. So I think maybe it might be in the pump, but it's making an awful sound. And I want to drop that transmission and get it fixed so that I have my Blazer back for the winter. So you guys let me know what you think. Should I move on to the Firebird paint correction? Do you want to see that stuff? Or would you rather me switch gears for a video or two and work on this bad boy and get him back on the road? So let me know down in the comments which way you'd like to go, and catch me next time.